Good morning. Welcome to the Vapour Cloud Disaster Recovery webinar. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome, everybody. We're joined today by Tim Mercer, CEO of Vapour Cloud, and Stephen Ridgway, Head of Technology at Zest to discuss disaster recovery, where to get started, the hottest technologies, and how to protect business continuity. Morning, guys.
Morning.
So, Stephen, if you could just tell me a bit about what you do at Zest.
Yep, good morning. My name's Stephen Ridgway. I'm the head of technology at Zest Telecom. Zest provide a range of unified comms to the channel, hosted telephony, IoT solutions, broadband, mobile. We work in that space with our partners to provide pretty much all the communications needs, and I'm the one who's supposed to know how it all works.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. If our attendees have any questions for either of our guests, please submit them in the questions box and we will come to them at the end. So I will hand over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Emma. Appreciate it. Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming on, Steve. Really, I want to go through about 6 or 7 points today around some customers and around basically about DR and a strategy around it. We can talk a little bit about what we did with you guys at Zest as well. But in general, I want to start with a couple of stats really, and see if you agree with this and your customers, your customer base, because you've got a fairly large customer base. Only 25% of organisations included cloud or hosted services in their DR plan, and that was from January 20. So about a year ago. Does that surprise you?
A little bit, yeah. I think with these things that they do get overlooked because ideally you never actually want to use them, and they don't actually become important until you need them. So it doesn't actually surprise me that people don't think about them because they can be expensive. And really, it's like car insurance, isn't it? You hope you never use it, but you've really got to have it.
Yeah, quite true, mate. And the other stat that I found not as surprising, I must admit, because we have this with us, is almost 25% of people, of organisations, never test the DR.
Yeah, again, it is quite surprising, but at the same time, it's not. Just because sometimes by testing you might break something. These things have to be planned in and stuff, so there's sometimes work around testing things. It all depends on the level, I suppose. If you're just restoring a backup or whatever, then that's not hard to test. But if you're actually failing over systems and what have you, there's a lot more around that and a lot more planning involved, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's the case, and I think most people would agree that DR backup services has took a bit more of a front and center. Let's put it that way, from a board point of view, probably in the last year from the pandemic, really. Lots of people had it on site, and then trying to go and pick up that on-site service down your internet line and come back out again, and everybody's trying to do the same. We call it tromboning, but trying to get in and out and pick it up just becomes a very, very difficult service to service, a difficult service to deliver. So putting that up in the cloud makes a hell of a lot easier, and we see a lot more customers making that transition. You see the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the cloud is where people are going these days, and DR is one of the main reasons for that. You know, you don't have to have double the hardware anymore. It's someone else's when it's in the cloud. So, and you kind of expect all that to be taken care of as part of your cloud package, in that you won't become a cropper due to hardware failures and what have you. So it's really at the software level where you need to look at your own DR plans.
And we did that with you, though, didn't we? We looked after you, and you changed your service to come to us. Give us a little bit of an overview of why that decision was made and why.
Well, we were all on site here before we went with you guys. Even our DR plans were on site. Even the server replication was to the same site, as it were. So as part of, we came into your MPLS network, we got all our major services into that, and then we took advantage of your cloud backups through your Veeam product to get our VMs and some physical. We've still got some physical servers, but we get the data up to the cloud as well. So, like I say, I hope we never have to use it, but it's it's a lot more reassuring that it's there, and it works really well.
We did a little bit of a hybrid with you, didn't we, really, in that instance, didn't we? Because we took some servers and did some colo with you in our data centers. We coloed it and we did the backup as well, didn't we? We did a bit of a hybrid for you.
Absolutely. So not everything we have is fit for cloud only. We still need some of our own hardware, but the actual backups of that do go to the cloud. So in terms of DR plan, if we were to have certain hardware failures, it'd still be a problem. But the important thing is the data's safe. So eventually we could get back to where we were.
And give us a minute or two on why that decision was made, not with us, but why that decision was made internally around, because this was well over a year ago that we made those changes. It wasn't made in the pandemic. You made that decision, conscious decision, in 2019, I think that was, in the early part of 2019. So why did you do it, and what did you look at? Did you look at around budgets? Did you look around security? Did you look at elements around that? What was the element inside Zest 4 to make that decision?
Well, the main thing is we were vulnerable by having things on site. So theft. People could just, theft, come in, steal it. Place burns down. An office isn't as safe as a data center for, for fire and all those various sorts of things. So something had to be done just due to vulnerability, because if all your data is on one site, it's obviously a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
And then, so the decision was made to go with a supplier, get everything in a secure location, and as part of that, even if that location has an issue, at least we've got the backups separate in the cloud to restore all our services eventually from ultimate disaster.
Yeah, hopefully. Touch wood not on that one. All right, thanks for that, appreciate it. There's a couple of bits that I took some notes when we've been dealing with our customers around what keeps them awake at night, and I'd like to just bounce a few of these off you and see whether you feel that they're the same in your industry. We're quite similar industries with quite similar customer sizes and that sort of stuff. What we see and what we've been looking at, what I've been researching, is the 5 biggest issues. So I'll touch the 5 biggest and then we'll go through them a little bit. First one, there is no plan at all. Right? There is a plan, but it's the wrong plan. It's inadequate in some ways. There is a plan, but it's on old or the wrong technology. The plan's not been tested, and there's insufficient information about the plan, which this is quite an interesting model. We'll spend a bit more time on that. So first of all, there is no plan. Do you agree with that? There's quite a lot of customers don't have a plan.
Absolutely, yeah. We come across that quite a bit. There's not much excuse for that one, is there, really?
No, there isn't. But I think there's an element there that I think around a lot of the time where IT leaders have asked for budgets over the years and either been knocked back or they have spent it on site where they've done their own services. Lots of times they go, we'll pick that up, we'll put that in our own network. A bit like yourselves, actually. We'll put it in our own network, we'll run it, we'll manage it, we'll support it ourselves, because we can do. But actually then it's like, well, we want to move it away. And there isn't a sufficient plan inside the business to move that away. And it just gets left until there is the shit hits the fan. Like, oh, we need to do that, really. And then it's almost too late, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. I guess so. I mean, budget is is one thing, but I don't know, maybe I've just been lucky, but I don't think it's a hard thing to explain that why it needs to be done and to get some extra funding. But like I say, it's one of those things that you hope to never have to use. So
Yeah.
in a way, you've kind of got to say, well, we're paying for something we may never come in. So I can see why it would be.
I get that. I get that. I think what we've seen over the last, especially over the last year, is a lot more of a change into, if we're all working from home or we're all disparate, we're not all in the office together, then we have to have a different solution. So there is budgets available now in a lot of instances, and it's easier to go and get that budget and have that discussion, because senior leaders who might not understand IT as much do get the understanding that actually I get how we've got to work a little bit more. It's a bit like when the pandemic first started and we said we've all got to go work from home, and lots of customers said, well, previously we just can't have everybody working at home, it'll never work. Well, it does work. You have to work around it a little bit, don't get me wrong, but it does work if you have the right technology in place to make it work.
Yeah,
that's the challenge, isn't it? That's the challenge. Yeah, that's the challenge, to make it work. I think when you've got to try and, if you're ringing someone up as an example, I rang someone the other day, a company, and they said, I'm sorry, we can't transfer the calls, everybody's working at home, we can't move you around. And it was like, really? What, in this day and age? We're not in the dark ages. But it's because they've not invested in that technology, have they, up front?
No, but like you say, especially over the last year, I think there has been a lot more investment in trying to get people remote, getting things into a central location, be that the cloud or whatever, and make it accessible from everywhere. And as part of that, you've got to have your DR plan.
Yeah, well, you should have your DR plan. There's no two ways around that, and get that working. Let's talk about the technology. Let's talk about some people relying on the wrong technology, or not understanding the technology in the right sense of how it works to support the business that they've got. I think we touched on it earlier, where we've got legacy businesses who predominantly have had stuff on site, want to move that out of the equation. It is a bit of a minefield, isn't it? There's lots of stuff out there. There's lots of challenges. There's lots of decisions to be made if you're unsure.
Oh, absolutely. There's a ton of products out there, and people still often see backups as swapping tapes or cartridges or whatever. And it really, it's rare you have to do things like that nowadays. There's storage is a lot cheaper these days and can be anywhere and accessible from anywhere. But there is a lot of choices. There's also a lot of different software that does a similar thing. So you suppose you just got to choose the right one that suits your needs.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about the tapes. We were talking to a client yesterday about this very subject, and we were talking to them, and they protect quite a few schools, and we were asking them. They came to us and said, we were looking at a new DR strategy and a backup service, some servers, etc., etc. And I said, one of our lads was saying to them, they were laughing in the office actually. They were saying, I can't believe it, when I was asking them about it, and they said, well, they're still backing up to tape.
Yeah, taking them home in the back of the car and
yeah.
Do they believe they could restore their entire business off those tapes?
Well, well, that's the challenge, isn't it? And the conversation I was having with the lads here was, that's not just one school. That's numerous schools that they were managing and supporting. And first of all, I was saying, I don't really think that's the right solution for anybody. No. But secondly, do the schools know that that's how they're being backed up as well? I think a lot of the times, and we try and support some of the IT partners like yourselves and other people, is making sure that they get the right information out to their clients, to make sure that you should be using different technology, because it'll make your life so much easier moving forward.
Yeah. There's still, I don't know if you've got any stats on how many people's servers are virtual these days, but there's still a lot of physical kit out there that can't be backed up as easily. obviously it's very easy with virtual. You back up the entire machine and restore it as an entire machine, and it can be back up and running in no time. But not everyone's got that facility still, even now.
Yeah, well, you know, the stats are about there's still about 70% of businesses have got servers that are on site in some way,
Right.
shape, or form. And I know you've got to have them in certain circumstances
Yep.
for around, you know, especially if you say an architect or something like that, and you've got massive files. You're not going to be pulling those massive files out of the cloud and trying to work them every day. So you're going to be utilizing some internal services around some servers that are on site, because it makes your life a bit easier and a bit faster. But if you're going to want to store them, you're going to want to stick them up somewhere out of the way and get them stored properly, so that everybody can access them in some kind of way, shape, or form. Especially if they're public knowledge, you can share them. Now I know, you know, sort of the security elements around it. But we had a customer the other week. I think it was bank holiday weekend, and we look after their backup storage and infrastructure, and they got ransom attacked. On the Friday, it was a bank holiday weekend on the Friday. And obviously we've got their backups, and we restored them into a full service and a full backup on the Wednesday, had them up and running, back in, everything that they needed, back up and running on the Wednesday. And to them, it was a wow, you know, I'm so glad we've paid that insurance money to get that right, because otherwise the view for them was, I don't know whether we would have survived that. Because without our corporate data, we're absolutely never mind having to pay the ransom if you're going to pay it or not, but actually not having our corporate data for a week, a month, whatever that may be, would just cripple the business. So for us, it was a really nice story. Obviously, they don't want to tell us who they are. We can't publicise that. No, we can't go out and say we've done this for a customer, because they don't want to know who it is. But it was great that it came to us, and we could end up restoring that. And it was nice that we got them back up and running on the Wednesday.
Well, for most companies, the data is everything, isn't it? So you can, you know, if you can restore applications and stuff, but if you've lost the data, that can be your entire business. So you can't really put a price on backing up databases and files and what have you, because it's everything.
No, I agree, and I think that's what this quick podcast, this quick webinar is all about. Really, is about understanding and trying to make it nice and simple for people. It doesn't have to be complicated. You know, why should you do it? Security, time, support, elements, all the things that you as a business decided to make that transition, 18 months ago, whatever that was. Obviously, you took, as I say, a slightly bit of a hybrid version where you've got some servers that you put in our data centers, and actually you take the cloud and the backup from that. But there shouldn't be an element of a business or businesses out there today that are scared of making that decision. It's simple, it's easy, the feed's easy, the simple to pick it up and move it, transition it across is quite straightforward nowadays. I know years ago it used to be seen as a bit of a black art, but I don't think it is anymore. I think we've got the process nice and slick now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from yourselves, it's kind of a half and half managed service. So we can set up our own backup jobs and what have you, but you guys also support it, and we get the storage and stuff from yourselves, which is managed by yourselves. So it's not a complicated solution to put in place and manage your own.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with it. Last couple of minutes, because we like to keep them nice and sweet, short, sharp and short, these webinars. Give us, if you were working with a client and they were looking at this technology, the DR and the backup and the storage, what are the main questions that you would be asking them to think about internally inside their business? What would you be saying to, when you come back to see me, I want you to have these 3 or 5 questions answered in your own mind.
Well, I'd want them to look at what data is important to them, what couldn't they live without, be that where that's held, be that in a database, whether it's a file structure, what have you. What is an acceptable time for them to be without that data?
Yeah.
So that would dictate whether we're backing up whole machines, whether we're backing up just the data, and then we'd get a new machine and put it on that sort of thing. That, and Probably. How much would they want to spend on said solution?
I think what we also find sometimes is a disparity between what the business needs and what the users expect. Okay, so a user would expect instant DR. Yeah, everything's up. I want it all. What's the problem? Whereas we know, as you just mentioned there, what do you actually need to get back up and running in a disaster scenario before we can do a complete backup? There's two different measures there, totally. What do you want to run the business in a disaster recovery scenario? And then how do we get you back up fully compliant and get you running again? And I think what businesses have got to understand is what do they need is exactly what you said. What databases do you need? What services do you need? Et cetera, et cetera. Whereas maybe the exec team's thinking, well, I shouldn't see any difference. Well, you don't have to see any difference, but you've got to pay for that. There's an element of that, if you want the Ferrari service, you've got to pay Ferrari money. If you want no disrespect to the Ford, if you want Ford service, you can pay Ford money. So it's understanding what you want to get that business back up and running in the right time, isn't it? Or else otherwise it's difficult to manage the expectations of the business moving forward.
Absolutely, and everyone's got some services that are more important than others. If you're hosting websites or what have you, they might be your main course of interaction with your customers, so they're the ones you want to keep up. Whereas you might have some lower level services in the background that you can survive without for a few days or whatever. So you can have a mix and match of what services you need to have up and running straight away, and what you can do without for a bit longer. So it's getting that sort of plan together, I suppose.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Just to finish off from us, and I'll take the last points off you in a second. I think, from my point of view, if you're looking at a DR and a DR strategy, is what we just discussed there. It's about making sure you understand what you want backing up and when you want them backing up and how you want them back up in a DR situation, what services you want. But I think there's got to be a clear communication between the provider and the company, and internally in the company as well, as to what's expected. So who's in control of that data, who's going to spin it up, and who's going to support them. And that contractual term's really, really important to make sure that you've got that right for when the shit does hit the fan, that you can press the button and go.
Yeah, absolutely. But you would hope that would be part of your plan, and you would have exercised at least some form of trial run of some services where that would be ironed out, because that would be a bad one to find out too late.
Yeah, you're right, mate. It would. I think, last couple of points from me is, what should we look for, and I'll cover it off and make sure you've got the same points, really. So from a business point of view, we should have a clear plan. We should test the plan. We should understand what services are going to be brought up in that plan and when they're going to be brought up, and the cost element for them and where they're going to be stored and shared, and who's going to be in control of that. Is it going to be the end user who's going to spin it up, or is it going to be us, as an example, who's going to spin it up? How does that? Is it going to be a managed backup and a DR solution, or is it going to be an unmanaged and you're going to spin it up? Different costs, different services. There's lots of people sometimes think, oh, I've got DR, I just expect you to do it, and it's like, hang on, it doesn't work like that. We need to prepare for that. Get the right technology for the jobs that you want it to do. Make sure you've got that and you've got that supported. Have the right information, because people leave businesses. So make sure you've got it documented. Make sure you've got that and you've got it tested completely. That's sometimes what people forget. We've got this plan. The person who set it up leaves, and actually there's no documentation for it, or limited documentation.
And they're the only ones with the passwords for the.
Yeah. But it does happen, doesn't it? It does happen, and we've all been there, haven't we? When we've in different types of work where John's on holiday and we can't get it because John's away, and it's like, hang on a second. But this is 100% important to make sure that we've got it documented correctly. And that's across both parties, isn't it? You as an example, as a business, and us, so that you, if you're going to go into a DR scenario, you know exactly what we're doing for you, and we know exactly what you're doing, and together we're working to get those platforms back up and running, rather than, well, I thought you were doing that. No, we're expecting you to do that. Oh no, I thought that when we bought, you're doing it. That grey area needs to be ironed out really early and really quickly within the contract.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I totally agree on that bit. All right, last bit for me. Making sure that the board or the executive team understand what's expected from a business point of view when they go into a DR scenario, yeah, and that it isn't, you know, you're going to be back up in 10 minutes. You know, what do you need? And that, I think we find that that's really important, because some of the senior execs that I deal with don't understand. The IT teams run that, but actually when we've got a failure, no one's really discussed it with them about the time element and what's going to happen and the process that's going to happen. So actually, as I said earlier, they just think it's going to turn on and it's going to work, and it doesn't work like that. We know that.
Yeah, but like you say, that would be one for your opening questions, is what's an acceptable time for these things to be down, and hopefully you would work off that and you would meet those initial targets. Yeah,
you'd hope so, but as I said, that I think that's almost that discussion inside that business to make sure that
everyone knows it. Yeah,
everyone, yeah, exactly, mate. Everyone knows what's expected from them, not just because we've seen it before where, well, why haven't we got that? Why is that not working? Well, you didn't ask us for that. Oh no, we need that. Yeah. Well, this is why we do the test. Yeah, but this is why we do the test, isn't it? This is why we do the DR testing, the plans, because actually when you spin it up, you go, oh, I need that and that as well. I don't just need these 6 things. I need these other 2 as well. So we need to put them into the plan as well. Okay. Final thoughts from yourself. Okay. If you're going to advise someone, give us a quick couple of minutes. What would you do? How would you do it? And where would you go with it?
Well, I think we've kind of covered it, haven't we? Decide what you need, decide when you need it, have a budget in mind of how much you want to spend on it, make sure everyone knows what you're going to be doing, why you're going to be doing it, how long things are going to be either up or down in various scenarios, and make sure it's well tested for if that time comes that you actually need it. And then at the end of it, just hope you never actually do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there that you mentioned there, mate, is you've got to test it. You know, we have to test it. We never know if it works properly if we don't test it. And we never know what you need, like I said, if we don't test it. So I know sometimes they're a ball ache to test, and we've never got the time to test them. Yeah, and it's always that, oh, I'll do it next week or whatever. But we have to put that in. We have to plan that, whether it's once a quarter, twice a year, whatever that may be. We have to sit down and plan it and make sure that it works, especially in the world that we're living in today. You know, with people being a bit more disparate, people working from home or wherever it may be, a bit more hybrid working solutions. Definitely that cloud solution service. As I said earlier, we've still got 70% of people haven't moved those services across into the cloud, and we've still only got almost 25%. They never test the DR, which is, it doesn't surprise me. It's still quite, 1 in 4 is pretty frightening, but it's not. It doesn't surprise me, I must admit.
No, they're definitely taking a risk.
Yeah, listen, I've took your time enough. Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate your time coming on. Wish you all the best. Wish Zest4 all the best, and I'll speak to you on the other side very shortly. Thanks for your time this morning. Okay. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. See you soon, mate. Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for that. There's a lot of questions that people need to ask within their business, to discuss, to talk about, to communicate at all levels within the business. You guys covered a lot, so we don't actually have any more questions for you today. I think everybody is now asking the questions back in their own offices, which is great. So thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Emma.
Great, thank you. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. See you soon. Thanks, Steve.